Hello everybody, happy Sunday and welcome back to another live. I hope you're doing well. I hope that you enjoyed the live last week Sunday and that you were able to process and integrate everything that I taught you. Welcome back today. We have a lot to get through. I want to switch it up a little bit today and talk about something different. I'm not going to go through any of the posts that I made or anything like that, but if you do have any questions about any of the content that I posted, feel free to leave it in the comment box below. But today I want to talk about something, an aspect of spirituality that I think is very interesting, and I think that a lot of you are going to find insightful, and that I think a lot of you are going to get a lot of clarity about. Okay, so that's my plan for today. Hi to everybody that's Joy. Hi, I am Rasta Bear. How are you? Per usual, you guys, you know the drill. If you have any comments, leave it in the questions or comments, leave it in the comment box. If you're watching the replay, just drop a little comment, or if you're watching on YouTube, same thing. I'll be happy to answer it. So what are we going to talk about today? I want to talk about the topic of mediumship. Okay, that's what I want to talk about today, because I feel like a lot of people are not forthcoming with their experiences with mediumship or their abilities with mediumship, and I feel like that needs to talk about a little bit more openly. So you're probably wondering, or you probably know, I know there's a lot of people in my audience who are beginners, intermediates, and advanced in spirituality, and there's a really big spectrum, so I'm aware of that. So wherever you are on the spectrum, that's fine, right? You're welcome to listen, you're welcome to join in, and you're welcome to receive information, right? Everybody's available for that. So what is mediumship? Basically, to summarize this, what's mediumship? Thanks for your question. Yeah, mediumship is basically, to summarize it, it's talking to the dead, right? That's in general, broadest terms, it's speaking to people who are deceased, who are no longer on earth with us. They've literally died. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about mediumship. And do I have this gift? Yes, I have the gift of mediumship. Some of you have booked energetic readings with me, and you know that we've talked and spoken to some of your relatives who have passed. So interesting. Thank you. So mediumship comes through the communication. There's a lot to unpack with this, so just bear with me. I'm going to kind of walk you guys through it. But mediumship is essentially seeing, feeling, hearing, and knowing information from the other realms, right? The realm where someone has passed that they are now in. So that's what mediumship is. It's not there's this narrative that mediumship is always that you're talking to the dead, right? But it's not always that you're talking. You can hear stuff, you can see stuff, you can feel stuff, and you can know stuff. So their ways of communicating to you here on earth is a little bit different. It's not only through hearing. They will make you feel things. They will make you see things. They will make you know things. So again, it's very different. And I think that narrative kind of needs to shift, that it's only through hearing stuff, that's the way that mediumship works. That's not the way it works. There's multiple avenues through which your loved one or the deceased, let's call them the deceased, okay? There's multiple avenues that the deceased can speak to you through. So again, I hope everybody understands that. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so I want to talk about my little experience with mediumship and how this came about, okay? And feel free to jump in and ask any questions. Okay, so do I have the gift of mediumship? Yes, like I shared with you. Was this something that I was actively seeking out in my spiritual journey? No, absolutely not. I did not even want any gifts to begin with. I didn't care about these things. I was very happy living my life. And the gift of mediumship just plopped itself on my lap, and I just happened to have it. And it is a little bit intense. The gift of mediumship is a little bit intense. And I want to backtrack a little bit and kind of tell you guys why I'm talking about this today. So this came up last week where I was talking to one of my mentors, and she said to me, how come you're not fully embracing your gift of mediumship? And I was like, because I don't want to. And she was like, fair. The gift of mediumship, if you have it, you do not have to embrace it, okay? Any of the gifts that you have, you do not have to embrace them. Just because you have a gift, and let me make this very clear to anybody, Just because you have a spiritual gift or ability doesn't mean you have to advance it, accelerate it, grow on it, use it, or share it. Okay, you don't have to do that. So for me, I felt like I don't want to further my gifts of mediumship, and she totally understood, and she was like, yeah, that's fair. Like, you don't have to do that, right? And I just, like, this is just not a gift I want to work with at this time, right? I'm very happy with my other gifts. I just don't feel the need to, like, I have other shit going on, right? Here in the 3D world, that I don't need any other problems and dealing with deceased people talking to me every day. Like, that's just not something I want to delve in. That's not something I want to specialize in. Can I do it? Yes. But again, it's not something that I'm using it's not something that I'm making as one of my main gifts. Does that make sense to you guys? So let me know if that makes sense to you guys, okay? So again, you don't have to do that. You don't have to if you have the gift of mediumship, you don't need to make the gift of mediumship one of your main gifts. You don't need to use it every day. You don't need to be active in using your gift of mediumship. You can just have your gift and select and pick and choose which gifts you want to use. You don't have to use them all. I don't use all my gifts. I use some of my gifts. Some are stronger than others. Some are more informative than others, right? So you can pick and choose which gifts you want to use. You don't necessarily need to stick to one that somebody suggests you should or that you feel called to. You can definitely have free will, and you have freedom of choice into which gifts you want to use at any given point in time. Okay, so let me know if you guys have any questions. So there's so much to unpack with this. I don't even know where to start, but I'm just gonna start. That's the thing. Okay, I'm going to kind of walk you through to like how a mediumship works, okay? And I'm going to address like some common questions that I think exist in the spiritual community that are incorrect, or that the narrative is kind of needs to be shifted around. Okay, so let's just make that our game plan. I have it all in my notes, so I'm going to try to walk you guys through this really slowly and really clearly and explain it to you the best that I can, okay? So when you begin with mediumship, let's start there. When you're beginning with mediumship, you always want to protect yourself. Why do we want to do that? We want to do that because I'm going to tell you right now, mediumship is wild. Like, it is crazy. Like, strange stuff happens during mediumship. Remember, you're talking to someone who's deceased. Let's put them in this realm up here, and you're here on earth. So they have stronger and different abilities than you have. So a lot of things can go array, and a lot of things can get out of hand. And you always want to put yourself first, and you always want to make sure that you are safe and that you feel comfortable and that you are in a bubble of protection. So let's call it that. You want to make sure you are in a bubble of protection and that you feel safe, okay? That is the number one thing with mediumship, period. You want to feel safe. You want to feel that you are comfortable, okay? So the way that people protect themselves when it comes to mediumship is different for everybody. You need to develop your own practice on how you can integrate protection into your mediumships and into your spiritual practice, okay? It looks different for everybody. Some people like to recite a prayer. Some people like to invoke different deities. Some people like to light incense. There's different practices. So you really need to cultivate a practice for yourself as to how you are going to protect yourself. Like I said, it's different for anybody. Anyone who's telling you that you need to recite this prayer, you need to pray to God, like, that's great. You can listen to their opinions and the information that they're sharing, but use your own discernment as to how you want to protect yourself. You will know. You will feel called to different ways on how you can protect yourself. So that's the number one thing I want to tell you guys and make clear, that when it comes to mediumship, you always want to be protected. You always want to make sure that you're safe, okay? Because like I said, it can end up in chaos. It can end up in a very serious situation. I've seen it happen. I've experienced some things. it can get really, really intense and out of hand very, very quick. It can go from 0 to 100 extremely fast. And I'm going to tell you this, that if things like that happen, who is going to help you? Let me ask you that question. Let me put it out there. If you think that you want to engage in mediumship and you're ready for mediumship and something happens that is batshit crazy, who do you think is going to help you? Most of you are like, I don't know, right? Because let me tell you, nobody is really going to help you, because a lot of people don't want to deal with that. They don't know what's going on. They don't know who you've made come through. They don't know who you're talking to. They don't know your connection. They don't know what you did for your protection. People don't want to get involved. They don't want that entity or whatever's happening to go onto them and to trigger them and mess up their lives, right? Because it will mess up your life. So you've got to be very clear. Like, the only people I know who's actually going to come and help you if you engage in mediumship and stuff goes wrong is maybe you've got to go to like a priest, or if you're Catholic or a Christian, you've got to go to church. You've got to get a priest. You got to get like, I don't know, man. Like, you've got to get like, I don't know. Every culture has a different like spiritual consultant that you will need to consult. And I've said this before, like, they're not going to help you for free. You're going to have to pay them. Nobody's going to do this for free for you. Okay. Nobody's going to clean up your mess, especially when it comes to mediumship. So you want to be very mindful that for this, and it's going to cost you like more than $500 guaranteed. They're going to charge you a lot more money to deal with this if you run into a problem. So that's why I'm saying you want to have a bubble of protection, and you want to know what you're doing when it comes to mediumship. If maybe you're a beginner and you're watching this and you're like, yeah, that sounds cool, I want to do it, don't do it. Like, I'm telling you right now, don't do it unless you are advanced and skilled at this and you know exactly what you are doing, because it gets really, really crazy if you don't know what you're doing. Let's just put it that way. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions. So now that I've clarified that and I've given you guys this warning, like, take it to heart, right? Like, I'm not just coming on lives and just, spilling out information that's useless to you. Like, really take it to heart. So now that we have the bubble of protection, the next thing you want to do in a mediumship is you want to ask permission or have an invitation, right? You don't just want to demand the presence of the deceased to come and talk to you. You don't want to do that, right? Because think about it, it's still a relationship that you're having with another person. They're just somewhere else. They're just existing in another way, right? So think about it here in the 3D, right? You're not going to call up your friend and be like, you have to talk to me right now. I want this information, right? You're going to call them and you're going to be like, hello, hi, how are you? Let's chat. It's the same thing when you're talking to the deceased. You want to ask permission. Hi, I'm Michelle, or whatever your name is. I'm inviting you to talk today. Is this something you would like to do? This is what I want to talk about. Be very clear and be very specific about who you are, what do you want, and who you are communicating to. Those are the 3 things I would say you need to do. Okay. Once you've established and you've asked permission, or if you've extended this into this invitation, you will know whether they want to talk to you or not. How will I know? You will know because you will either see something, feel something, hear something, or know something. Like the 4 things I said earlier at the beginning of this live. That's how you'll know. Look for any one of those things, okay? And then you're welcome to engage in communication at that point. Is this making sense to you guys? Let me know. Okay. So once you've established your bubble of protection and you have permission, the next thing you're going to do is you are going to have an open mind and low expectations. And I'm saying this because there is this narrative, hear, feel, see, or know something. I am Rasta Bear has asked. Yes, that's how you will know if you've established a connection. Sometimes, like I said, right, they may talk to you, but other times you may hear something, you may feel something, you may see something, or you'll just intuitively know something, and then you'll know that the connection has been established. So that is correct. So I want to say you have to have an open mind and low expectations. And I say this because there's this narrative in the spiritual community that, once you engage in mediumship, everybody's like, the deceased is talking to you and it's la-di-da and everything's really great and it's fine and you get all the information and it's like, this really great exchange and it's such a positive experience. No. Okay. Keep an open mind and have very low expectations. I've said this in numerous of the lives. If you guys have been here for a while, the way that the divine and entities and people communicate in other realms to you here in the 3D is very different. It comes across very differently, right? You have to think of it as this little picture that I'm making with my hands. They're up here, you're down here. There's all this stuff in between. And the stuff in between interferes or intercepts with the message that is coming across. So it is very much like broken telephone. The messages that come across and the way that the messages come across are very distorted. They're not clear. You may get one words, you may get a feeling, you may get a smell, you may hear something, you might know something. It's never a direct line of communication, how I'm talking to you right now, where I'm speaking fluent English directly to you. It's not like that. It's very broken telephone. It's very distorted. It's very vague sometimes. It can be very open to interpretation, right? So that's why I'm saying keep an open mind of how the messages are coming through to you, and also have very low expectations, because people think right away they're going to connect with their deceased grandmother and like she's going to tell all the family secrets. Like, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes like you don't know you don't know what's going on with them in this realm, okay? You may know them how you know them here in the 3D world before they have passed, but after they pass, they're that person, they're still that soul and that person that you know, but also remember, they have now died, right? So that's a traumatic experience in some instances. In some instances, some people aren't ready to pass. In some instances, a lot of people have regrets. A lot of people have doubts. A lot of people are angry. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people are hurt when they pass, right? So you don't know how that's affected them, because obviously they are now dead and you haven't had the chance to ask them. And then you're going to go knock on their doorbell up in the higher realms and be like, let's chat. Like, that's not sometimes going to go over that well, right? Like, sometimes they don't want to be disturbed. Sometimes they're angry, really angry that they are died, or that, whatever happened to them happened and now they're dead and they're not here on earth. Sometimes most people aren't ready to go. So you have to keep this in mind. And that's why I'm saying, like, have low expectations, because sometimes some people don't want to talk. They don't want to hear from you. And that's why I go back and said that you need to ask permission, because most likely than not, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to be bothered. Why are you bothering the dead? Right? For what reason? And this goes back to why I say that I don't really engage in mediumship that often. You only see me doing that in client readings, is because I don't want to bother the dead. I don't do that. I don't think that's right, essentially. I'll do it in client readings, like I've said, or if I'm really, really like in need of an urgent message or some sort of information. I've only done it, I think, maybe one or two other times in my whole career that I've I had to ask for help with something from someone who's deceased. But other than that, I am not doing this every day. I'm not activating this ability every day. This is not something that I choose to engage with every day. And it goes back to what I'm telling you. Like, you do not want to be doing this every day, right? Like, do you guys understand why this is problematic? Like, why this can become very problematic for you? Okay, so again, have an open mind of how the messages are coming through. Have very low expectations of what may come through for you. And also I would, you know, just, yeah, I would say those are the things. Have low expectations about what's coming through and keep your open mind about what's coming through, because it's not going to go the way that you think it's going to go. I guarantee you that. It's not going to go how you think it's going to go. You're not going to get the information that you think you're going to get, and you are probably going to be unsatisfied in some way. Okay? Like, let's just put it that way. It's very, very different how the deceased is in a different realm. Like, it's not how they are here in the 3D when you knew them. It's like, it's a very different, it's the same person, but it's a very different version of them. And it's very, I don't know how to explain it to you. It's very like, it's just different. Put it that way. Okay. Let's just say it's just different. Okay, the next thing after you have an open mind and you have low expectations is I want you to trust what you're receiving. And I go back and say this because, again, you may see something, feel something, hear something, or know something, and you have to trust with what you're receiving. If any of you have been on a spiritual journey, or if any of you know what I'm talking about, the best thing I can compare this to is a past life regression or a future life regression. So if you've had either one of those, then this might make sense to you, what I'm saying. But in a past life regression, right, you close your eyes and they take you back in the past and you see images and people, and it's kind of blurry and it's fuzzy. It's kind of the same thing here. Like, you may get a message that's one word, like, I don't know, let's say pumpkin pie. And you're like, what? Like, am I thinking of pumpkin pie? Or did they like literally say pumpkin pie? Like, which one is it? So you have to trust the way that the messages are coming through, and you have to trust that you're receiving what you need to know. Okay. So again, the messages could be like one word. They could be like, you smell, like, let's say cigarette smell, right? A cigarette smoke. It could be something like that. And you may think, oh, did someone outside smoking? Like, my window's open? Or like, was that really my grandfather's, like, who smokes? Like, you need to think about it like that. You really need to trust that you're going to receive what you need, and that what you're receiving is coming through for you. Okay. So again, there's a level of respect and trust and vulnerability when it comes to mediumship. It's not you going to the deceased and demanding information and answers and getting what you want. It is not that type of relationship. Okay. You'll often see this in like seances and where like people are doing that kind of stuff, but that's not the relationship. You have to come with respect. The same way you would give a respect to your elders here in the 3D, it's the same thing that you're doing up with the deceased in the other realms, right? You have to be respectful with this, because remember, they have different abilities than you, and they can make your life hell if you play around with this, okay? And I'm going to elaborate on that in a bit, okay? Okay, the next thing you want to do after you trust what you're receiving is you want to set your intentions. And I briefly talked about this a little bit in the live where I said, you know, you want to say who you are, who you want to communicate to, what is the information that you're seeking answers for. You want to set your intentions. You want to be very, very clear. If any of you have worked with any entities, beings, or deceased in other realms, or in spirituality in general, you know that you have to be very clear. You have to be very direct. You have to be very blunt. That means like give specific, like your questions have to be specific, right? Who, what, where, when, how. Like if you want a certain timeline, give a date. If you want know something about a certain person, give a name. Like you have to be clear. You have to set your intentions that like you're here for this answer. This is what you want. And like, that's it. You cannot have ulterior motives when it comes to mediumship. Let me repeat that. You cannot have ulterior motives when it comes to mediumship. They will know and they will play with you because you are playing with them. And this is not a game. Mediumship is not a game, and it's not for fun. So you want to make sure you're very, very clear about what you're doing and why you are bothering them. Okay? that's like the best I can explain it to you. Like, a lot of people think it's fun and like, you know, they're using the Ouija board and all of these things, right? That's like something else. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you are a professional psychic or you're a professional medium, and this is what you do, and you are advanced in your skill set, right? I'm not talking about like those other things that people are doing, like witchcraft, all of that. I'm not talking about that. Okay? So again, you want to make sure your intentions are very clear and that you've set your intentions, that you know your intentions and they know your intentions. Both parties have to know the intentions here. You can't just keep it to yourself and be like, it's my little secret, I'm going to contact them, hee hee. Like, no, it doesn't work like that, okay? Does that make sense to you guys? Let me know. I know, this is a lot. And it's a lot. And I don't see people openly talking about this the way that it should be talked about. And I don't see people really delving into this to the point of where they're fleshing out the details of like how I'm fleshing it out for you, okay? So you might have to rewatch this and listen to this again, but it will make sense to you when you are in a mediumship. It's sort of making sense to you. Okay, so if you've experienced mediumship or you've like done this before, then it will kind of make sense. Or if you're new to mediumship, then keep this in mind when you're doing mediumship, right? Like it will all make sense to you as you work with the energies and as you develop your abilities, okay? The next thing I want to add is, now that you set your intentions, you want to also keep in mind that the deceased spirits, whatever you want to call them, they want closure as much as you do, okay? So normally in mediumships, you're talking to someone who's deceased, a relative, grandparent, family member, brother, sister, mother. They want closure as much as you do. Remember what I said in the beginning, right? Is they don't know what happened to them. Some of them don't even realize that they've crossed over. They don't even know that they're dead, right? You have to think about this very carefully. Like, what stage are they at? Like, how close are you talking to them after they've passed? Like, how quickly do you think that they have processed the fact that they are now dead? Like, that's a process, right? The same way grief is a process here in the 3D, processing the fact that you are now dead is another process. So you need to think, like, do you think that they processed it, right? Like, could it be a year? Maybe it's a very traumatic death. Maybe that may take 2 years, 3 years. Like, who are you really to say like how long it's taken, right? And this goes back to where I was talking to my mentor, and she was saying she's going to talk to Charlie Kirk, right? And I was like, really? Like, you want to do that? Like, his death just happened. And she was like, yeah, he's really angry, I'm not going to do it, right? Like, that's an example. Like, you don't want to do it when the death is very fresh, right? Usually there's some high emotions. It's a very heightened time where you don't want to be connecting with someone at that time. So again, the deceased and the spirit like world, they want as much closure as you do. So you really need to keep that in mind about the timing of whenever you're communicating to them, the timing that they died, the timing that the process of death takes place. These are all things you want to keep in mind. It's not as easy and simple as you think. There's a lot of backstory to this when it comes to mediumship, and there's a lot of intricacies involved when it comes to mediumship. So again, they want his closure as much as you do, so you really have to give them the time and the respect that they deserve, right? Like I said in the beginning of the live. The next thing I want to talk about, hi Matthew, how are you? The next thing I want to talk about is mediumship gets easier with practice. Initially, mediumship feels very, not out of body, but initially mediumship feels very strange, right? It feels very, because remember, you're talking to higher realms, you're talking to another, you're essentially talking to someone who's dead that you can't see, touch, or feel. So are they grieving too? Sometimes they may be grieving. Yeah, in most cases, most people who've passed are sad, right? And they're grieving. But like I said, you don't know, right? And it depends on the relationship that you have with them. Sometimes they don't want to hear from their, let's say it's a, I don't know, child who's died because of their parents' neglect or abuse. Sometimes they don't want to hear from them, right? Sometimes they're not grieving in that case, right? Or someone who's been murdered, right? Maybe they're not grieving that person essentially. So, but are they grieving their death? Maybe, right? So it depends. But again, you want to be very mindful of that. So most cases, right? Most cases, let's say it's a loved one and they love you and you love them. They want closure as much as you do, right? They want to understand what happened. They want to understand how, how the relationship is going to move forward. Got it. So yeah, they want to understand how the relationship is going to move forward, and they want to basically still communicate and have a relationship with you. Like, who doesn't want that, right? There's this narrative that when you die, that the relationship is over, and that's where a lot of the grieving and people are very sad, and that's understandable, right? But you have to understand that death is a very different relationship. It is still a relationship that exists. People think that it's like cut off because the person's no longer here in the 3D, but that's really not the case. It's just a very different dynamic and a very different relationship that I encourage people to really try to understand, because even though someone has passed in your life, you can still have this relationship with them. It just looks and feels very different. And that's what people aren't used to. And that's what people have a very hard time wrapping their head around, and they can't understand it. So again, they want closure as much as you do, and it will get easier with practice. I remember my first mediumship, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I was making up the information or was this the information I was getting. I was, had all of the things. I was seeing things, I was hearing things, I was knowing things, and I wasn't sure if it was just me playing into this, or was it, really something that came through, and it wasn't a client reading. And this is why it's important, you have feedback from somebody who can verify the information. So let's say I was in a client reading and the deceased was communicating that they loved, banana bread, right? And then the client would be like, yes, that's absolutely true. So it's important that you are able to verify the information that's coming through, and that it will get easier, right? Once you start knowing how mediumship works, how the messages become communicated, how you may see, feel, hear, and know something, then it becomes a lot easier for you to work with mediumship and work in that specific gift, okay? Yay! Okay, we're almost done my list. I hope this is very clear for you guys. Okay, the next thing you want to do, hold on, let me drink some water. And this is very, very important. The next thing you want to do is you want to be a controlled medium versus an uncontrolled medium. So what does that mean? A controlled medium is somebody who is basically in control of the mediumship, right? Like I said, you want to be the one running the show. You do not want the deceased person who is in the spiritual realm being in control. And that would be someone who is an uncontrolled medium. They don't have control of the mediumship. You want to be the one in control here. You want to be the one calling the shots, calling the moves, asking the questions. You want to be doing this because, like I said, things can get very, very out of hand. What does that mean, Michelle? What do you mean by things can get out of hand? I mean, like, you are now, when you extend the invitation, right, you are inviting the deceased into your auric field, into your environment, into your room, like this 3D room, let's say that I'm in, and you don't know what entities are attached to them. You don't know what beings are attached to them. You don't know how they're coming through. It's a very different network. So things can attach to them, entities and beings, and you don't want that to come through into your physical environment. For example, the room that you're in, because I will tell you, shit will start moving. Papers will start flying. I've had pens explode on the desk. I've had certain smells come up that I've never smelled before. It can get very, very, very chaotic. And who's to say, once they're in your environment, they're going to stay. Most likely they're going to stay in your environment, and they will cause havoc in your life because it is fun for them. Think about it. They were once alive in the 3D world, then they were dead, then you've invited them back into the 3D world and you can't see them. You're telling me that's not fun? You're not telling me a spirit or deceased is going to have a time with that? Oh, they're going to have a time, but it's going to be at a cost for you. They're going to have a time that's going to be at a cost for you. And then think about it. You've got work, kids, family. How are you going to deal with this big mess, right? They will be knocking on doors, running down the hallways, giggling in your ear, knocking shit over. What are you going to do? That's why I'm saying you want to be a controlled medium. An uncontrolled medium would be inviting all of these things into their lives, right? It can get very scary, very, very, very fast. So that's why you want to be a controlled medium and know exactly what you're doing while you're doing this, okay? Does that make sense to you guys? So, okay, after that, right, you want to learn to close down the mediumship session. The same way that you asked for a bubble protection and you invited the deceased into your mediumship session, you want to close it down. So what does that mean? That means you want to stop all communication. You want them to go back where they were, up in the higher realms, and you go back to your life in the 3D. You want the connection, the telephone call to stop. You want to hang up, right? That's what you want to do. You want to close down the session. You want to thank them. You want to express your, gratitude, and you want to end it. Period. Okay? You always, always, always want to end a mediumship session. If you do not end the session, that allows them to have a continuous stream and entry into your auric field and into your life, which again can result in what? Chaos and havoc. Right? So again, you always want to close down the sessions. You always want to thank them. You always want to express your gratitude. And that's it, right? Set your intentions. The same thing how you were setting your intentions during the mediumship session. The same things you want to do when you're closing down your session. You want to set your intention. For example, this conversation is now done. I've enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you very much. Please enjoy your time. And this connection is now over. Done, right? It could be as simple as that, or it could be like not as simple as that. It's up to you. But again, you always want to close down your session. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I know this is so much, right? Who would think that this is how much you're going to get from mediumship? But it's a lot. And I see a lot of people in the spiritual community really starting to engage with mediumship or wanting to do mediumship. And it's like, it's not that simple. It's not that easy as you think. Okay, so I'm going to put myself in some of your shoes, and I'm going to ask myself some questions that I think you're probably wondering or you probably want answers to. So the first question you're probably wondering is mediumship scary? And I've kind of touched on this, and yes, it's scary. If you are somebody who wants to do mediumship and then you feel like you're a little bit scared, then I would say to you, please do not do this. If you are scared, do not do this. Okay, because it gets scary. It can get scary when you're seeing things, feeling things, smelling things, knowing things, hearing things that are not in the room with you. That is scary. I can understand that and appreciate that, right? It is scary. I'm not going to lie to you and be like, it's not scary. It is scary the first couple of times, right? Especially, like I said to you, if the person's angry or really upset and you start feeling these emotions, right? Or they're projecting it onto you, right? That's what starts happening. It can get very overwhelming. And if you're not prepared to deal with these things, and if you have other instances and things going on in your life, you don't want to be dealing with these emotions, right? So again, is it scary? Yes, in some respects it is scary. So if you feel scared or you think you're scared, then do not do this. Okay? The next question I think some of you would have is, can you turn this off? Can you turn off the gift of mediumship? Yes, you can turn off the gift of mediumship. You can turn off many of your gifts. I remember when most of my gifts came online, I had a mentor and I was telling her, I feel crazy. I literally feel crazy. I'm hearing things, seeing things, am I schizophrenic? What? Do I have a mental illness? What is going on? And this was a mentor who was very skilled in advance, way more than I was 10 years ago, right? And she has said to me, just turn it off. And I'm like, what? And she was like, you don't have to be using your gifts every day, all day. She's like, you can turn them off. You can disconnect, right? She's like, it's up to you. Your gifts don't control you. You control your gifts. Okay? That's very, very important. You control your gifts. You can turn them on, you can turn them off. So most of the time in the 3D world, I've turned off certain gifts, right? It's not like as easy, maybe it's easy as a switch going on and off, but essentially it's like I'm not using them, I'm not engaging with them. Like I'm not every day, like I told you guys, walking around and using mediumship and talking to the dead every day. Like that's just not something I want to do. But do I turn on other gifts like clear knowing or clairsentience or clear audience? Yeah, those are on, right? I choose to leave those on because they don't bother me in my everyday life. It's very nice to have them pop up, throughout the day. But like think about mediumship or like talking to a dead popping up throughout your day. Like that's not like cool, right? Like you could be in your 9 to 5 job and like all of a sudden you're hearing like, I don't know, right? Like something crazy. Like that's not fun. So so you can turn off and on your gifts, okay? If anybody tells you you can't, you can. You are in control. It's your ability. It's your gift. You are in control. They don't control you. There's this narrative that like, your gifts are overwhelming and they're all consuming, and they can be if you're uncontrolled, but you are the one who needs to control them. You need to tell them how to work. You need to give them clear instructions. You need to command and control your own gifts. Like I said before, initially, I didn't when this started happening to me. I couldn't control them. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Mind you, I'm in law school at the time, right? So I'm like, definitely, I thought I've gone mad, right? And it will feel like that. But you need to have somebody who you can talk to and someone that you trust, a spiritual consultant or a mentor like I did at that time, right? That's why I'm coming on and sharing these things with you in a live, so that when they start happening to you, you don't think that you're crazy. Okay, so let me know if that makes sense to you guys. You can turn them off, definitely 100%. You are in control of your gifts. The next question that I think a lot of you would have, and I think I've seen this narrative in the spiritual community, is that this is devil worship. Like I'm worshiping the devil. Talking to the deceased is like devil worship. Like it's not devil worship, okay? Like I'm not worshiping the devil. I've not invited the devil. I've not talked to the devil. Like I don't know who you worship, but like you've got to figure that out, right? This is where things get really wrong. And I've seen this in like Joe Rogan podcast where he's interviewing people and priests and stuff, and they're like, it's devil worship. It's how you're using your gifts, right? You have people who are doing witchcraft, voodoo, I don't know what, right? They're using their gifts in that type of way where it becomes very dark. It becomes very scary. It becomes very, dangerous, because that's the intention that they've set. You know who you worship. You know what you believe in. You know what your intentions are. So keep it like that, right? Like it's not devil worship to be talking or establishing a relationship with a loved one who is passed. Where is the devil in that? Unless you yourself have brought that into the mix. So again, be careful who you're talking to and be careful who you're getting information from. And that's why I said you want to set your intentions. You want to be very clear about what is going on here, because again, yes, entities and beings can come in and they can come through, right? They can attach on and jump in the back seat of the dead person you're talking to, and it can get out of hand. So again, you want to set it clear. You want to keep everything in the light. You don't want to do mediumship really, essentially, if you are doing any sort of dark worship or anything like that. Like, it's just wild that anyone would want to do something like that. So essentially, in general terms, is mediumship devil worship? No, it's not devil worship. It's not. You're literally just establishing and cultivating a relationship with someone who's deceased. That's all it is. You know who you worship, like I said. So again, make it very clear to yourself, make it very clear to everybody else, and make it very clear to who you are trying to communicate with. It's as simple as that. Do not complicate it any more than that, because you will run into problems. Okay? So again, let me think. Is there any other questions about mediumship that I think you guys would have? Have I had really any scary experiences? You're probably wondering that. Like I told you, I wouldn't say like scary. Yeah, was one when the pen, it was a pen like, I don't have a pen. Okay, it was like one of these pens with a little spring thing. Like the whole spring blew apart. This part like just shot apart. Like, and I wasn't even touching the pen. Like that was probably the scariest like thing that happened. I've smelled like cigarette smoke that I like where nobody's smoking, like very strong. I've one person or deceased that came through was very, very angry. It made me feel very angry. You could sense their emotions, right? That they are very, very disturbed. And that was not someone who I wanted to communicate with, because God, the penny, what do you mean the penny? What does that mean? So that wasn't somebody that I was willing to communicate with, right? Because I don't want to experience that type of anger. So again, those are probably the worst things that happened to me. Like I said, I don't really engage in mediumship that often unless I'm in a reading with a client. But other than that, what other questions would you guys have? I want to know what you mean by the penny. Yeah, let me see. What other questions would you possibly have? Can everybody do mediumship? Absolutely. Everybody can do mediumship. Do I recommend that everybody? You said a penny exploded in the room. No, it wasn't a penny. It was a pen. It was a pen like this. The top exploded, like this part flew off, and then the bottom part like broke off. Like the whole pen just combusted. And it was on the desk and I wasn't even touching it. So that happened during a mediumship, right? So that's why I said they can make things happen in the physical space that you're in, right? People have had like pictures falling off the wall. People have heard like knocking. People have heard like giggling. People have heard people running in their like hallways. It can get very weird like that, right? Especially if you have family members or like small children. Like you don't want anything from the spirit realm really interrupting your home life like that, right? Because you don't know how like your children are going to react to something like that, or your spouse or anybody like that. So again, that's why I said you want to keep it very clear. Okay, yeah. So can everybody do mediumship? Yeah, absolutely. Everybody can do mediumship, but I would highly suggest that you get training on it, right? I'm self-taught, but again, I have people that I can consult with, right? I have mentors. I have people that I can call up and be like, hey, like things have gotten wild, like I need help. So you need to kind of develop that community for yourself. You really need to do your own research and try to figure out things for yourself. And you really have to learn as much about it as possible before you try to engage in this, because it's what it is, and it's not something that I would take lightly. And again, I keep hearing the spiritual community that like, oh, I talked to the dead, let's do a seance, and like, it's not like that. Please understand that it's not like that at all. So again, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'm going to end the live here. If you need clarification about anything afterwards, let me know. If you want to book a high vibrational energy reading, just click the link in my bio or send me an email. If you want to join our free Sovereign Circle broadcast channel here on Instagram, just click the link in bio. I often do predictions. And you could join our email list, or you can also book for spiritual consultation. Everything is linked in the bio for you. And I will see you next week, Sunday, live at 2 p.m. I love you, and bye. Thanks, Michelle. You're welcome. Bye. Have a great day.